Good morning, friends.
Hey guys,
Hey guys, how are you?
We seem to always record in the morning.
Yes.
My brain's always the freshest in the morning.
If you guys could see us, which
like
hopefully we'll get our YouTube channel up soon. We're just early in the morning, big things of coffee here, and we are recording on video.
Yeah, we watch the sunrise.
If we ever
We
release them.
literally watch the sunrise out the window, huh?
Why do we do them so early? Because we have
Jobs.
Yes, because we don't get paid
Businesses
well.
to
Speaking
run.
of jobs, yeah, I thought today, guys, we discussed this before we just push record. This whole idea of maintaining your passion for agency life, maintaining your passion and excitement and energy for what you do. I don't know the statistics. I probably should have looked these up. Maybe I will while we're sitting here. Seems to be a high level of burnout in agency life for many of the reasons that we've talked about in past episodes. Do you guys find that to be true? I know you've worked for big agencies, Brad. Was that something that was real?
Yeah, I mean, like anyone, when you're staying at the office till 9 o'clock at night every night, things give, and so it's out of choice that it gives, and people decide that it's not worth it. It's not worth the other side of the destruction that it can cause if you're not careful and you don't have boundaries and stuff. And I've been there, and sometimes it's really difficult. I remember when I was younger, before I had kids, or maybe when my daughter was really young, I'd find myself at the office a lot at 7:30, working on a project that had to get out. We had a big presentation the next day, and I always felt like I couldn't leave my team, and like I wasn't the kind of guy who's going to leave my team and leave them to do the stuff and not participate as a leader. So I stayed, but if I look back at it now, was it worth it? That's debatable, and I think that's where you get once you get that to go, is this what's worth my time in life? Because that's all I have is my time. What do you do? Right. And so, yes, burnout is real. How do you protect yourself? And I think more importantly, how do you not get upset at the industry, or how do you not start feeling negative towards your work or your business? I know, Ken, when we started talking here before we hit the live button, we talked about sometimes we just want to go and become employees. Like if you're a business owner, you get to the point where you're like, man, is all of this worth it? I just want to go make widgets somewhere and work on the line and nothing, where I don't have to really have that stress. I don't have to deal with what we deal with sometimes in our industries and the deadlines and things. And so, yes, let's make a long story short, burnout is real. And if you're feeling that way, let's talk about ways that you can go back to your first love of marketing and advertising and find the value in it.
Yeah, I just looked up some data. There was an article that came out about a year ago in Digiday, and they did a research that said 32% of agency professionals reported being worried about their mental health, and it doesn't matter what kind of agency.
42?
No, 32.
Okay. 32?
Yeah, 32 is still pretty high. 32. It doesn't matter what kind of agency, whether media or creative. And it's part of an article that they're talking about this. And they were saying at VaynerMedia, at Gary Vaynerchuk's agency, they when things get too tough, they have what's called a safe space in their agency, in their building, for panic attacks and crying sessions. Known among them as, some of the peers call it, the cry closet, but they have it specifically. It says a meditation room for relaxing, adult coloring books, a salt lamp, a chair, quiet place.
I would like adult coloring books. That sounds fun. Hey, well, what is that? Let's talk about that really quickly, because my mind kind of goes to, is there a problem when you have a room like that? Number one, or should every company have a room like that? And that's just, it's every industry that needs a place to escape.
Well, if the industry is between 30 and 35%, as I read on in that article, it's just across just employees in general in America, 30 to 35% are worried about their mental health and directly related to work. So yes to your question.
I mean, we don't know the data, but it'd be interesting to see what that is against other industries.
Well, no, I think that's, it said that's in line with a nationwide industry across the board.
So that's just work in general. Like that's just business in general. It doesn't matter.
But look, when you have to have a cry room, what you said for crying.
Well,
and,
that's what a couple of employees called it, but what they call it is a meditation
attacks.
room, a quiet room, a meditation room, a quiet room, just a place to go if you need to have some space.
Yeah, no, I mean that to me that's in line with what we know, but it's sad if that's the case. If as a company you need to have a cry panic room.
I had an opportunity.
It's that state of the industry, not necessarily the company, but yeah.
Well, like all of us, we've had the opportunity to visit other companies. And I was on the Facebook campus in Milano Park one time, and I was walking with a friend of mine who worked there. He was kind of doing a tour of the campus for me, and we walked by. There was a printmaking shop, and if you've ever been to Facebook, it's almost like downtown Disney. They have a whole downtown area, and there's restaurants, and everything's free. Just because they want to keep their employees there. But they have a printmaking shop where you can just walk in and do printmaking with your hands. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. It's like, yeah, that's, people are so online that they just need a break and they need to get away and do something that's not digital, something with their hands. And that's really, really their cry room, I think. That's part of their plan, is to offer things where people can just unwind and not think about the stresses they're having. I think, agencies try to do that in the past with having ping pong tables and, all the fun, making the fun thing there. It's almost like a little bit of an allure. Like they're like, hey, you come in, you're interviewing for an agency and you see all the fun stuff that people are doing, almost like it's a play day all the time. Yeah. And they're kind of luring you in because they know in the end, they're like, we're going to work you to death. And you're going to,
You're never going to see that ping pong table.
You're never going to play that ping pong table. You're going to be so swamped with work.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that it's more nefarious like that, or it's more of, we can get more productivity and people are better, healthier, when they are able to take breaks, especially creatives, when they're able to, exercise their body, move their body in some way. I mean, I think this is probably, a little bit of both. Like, there's that.
It's definitely a little bit of both.
Yeah, we're going to get as much as we can. But I think in general, providing environments and cultures and trying to build cultures that are positive and you feel like you're part of a team, and you feel like you can be creative and productive.
That's my biggest struggle, I think, because with my agency, I'm kind of a workaholic, and it's not good for sure. And I need those times where I can go off, and I do those myself in my own free time. But I don't.
How many hours? Would you say how many hours a week do you work?
4.
No, that's the magic number.
No, I work 4.5. No, I don't know how many hours I work. I don't.
Monday morning you work 4.
I mean, I probably work normal, like
in normal.
Yeah, I probably work 9 to 5, 9 to 6 sometimes. I bring home work at times. I don't always. I don't typically work in the evenings. I work sometimes in the weekends. Not like I used to.
I was getting texts from you at 10:30 last night.
Yeah, but talk about, okay, I'm not going to try to diss on you guys, but I think Bob is like constantly connected online. I don't think there's a time I could, like, if I'm like, he'll text all times, but then also I look and he's on social.
I signed up for Elon. I'm waiting for Neuralink.
Oh, there you go. Anyways, I try to disconnect. The older I get, the more I disconnect because I just don't care anymore. I mean, I really don't. I get to the point where like I'm tired of it. I'm just, to be really frank with you, I get to the point where like this is my time and you're not going to take it any longer because you've taken it my whole life. And I'm talking about me. I've done it to myself. I haven't had good boundaries. And so I think for me personally, I have a hard time with boundaries. So I get almost militant about it at times. Like, this is my time.
I think you have to not care to a certain extent.
What you going to do about it?
Nothing.
Oh,
I'm not going to mess with you. I think you have to not care to a certain extent. We kind of talked about this in other episodes a little bit, so we don't have to go into it too much. But I think that you have to, at some point, be like, no matter what, I'm off.
Yeah.
Yeah. there's always going to be an emergency. There's always going to be, ultimately, like you said, time is the only thing that you never get back. You can make more money. You can make more friends. You can, like, those are all things that they may be hard. They may not be ideal, but really figuring out how you use your time correctly. And I also believe that the perception that we have on situations may make them less or more urgent. It's just our perception on something. And so, like, if there's something that's begging your time that you feel like you need to do, that may just be your perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in getting back to getting our passion, that's part of it, right? Like, how do we, if someone's listening to this and they've been, in running their agency now for 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, whatever it is, and it gets stressful. I mean, when you've got clients, you're trying to scale, Corona has not helped at all, because I know everybody's kind of, trying to figure out what world we're living in right now. But how do you remain passionate, and how do you find that balance between this is the everyday work of life and you're going to have these moments, and I'm really passionate and excited about my life, making the most of every moment. I'm living my day to the fullest. Like, how do you guys balance that? Because you can't live there all the time. It's impossible. I mean, maybe you can, maybe Tony Robbins can, but you can't, like, live in this constant awareness of, I'm killing it. I'm living every moment to the fullest, and I'm present, fully present, mind, body, and spirit. And I'm passionate about it.
I would say that my emotions and my mental health drive the business. And when I'm not as proactive in my business, the business isn't proactive.
Right.
And that's really difficult. Like, for me, I don't have a partner in business, so we can't rely on each other when one of us is struggling, or one of us is whatever, like, not as motivated.
By proactive, do you mean like forward looking?
Yeah, just pushing the business forward, like moving, being more proactive. I notice there's times I go through seasons where I just kind of, like, almost check out a little bit. It's like but I need to. I have to. Like, literally, if I didn't, there's fires every minute of every day. I literally would just get consumed by it, to the point where it just would bring me so far down. So I know where my boundaries are, and sometimes I check out, and people come up and they take over and they do a good job, but the business kind of stalls I feel it stalls. It kind of just is in limbo for a time until I engage again. And I think that's okay. I've kind of gotten okay with that. Like, I don't need to drive the business every waking day of every hour. It gets to the point where, for a season, I might do some, I might be proactive and we might be doing more pushing in sales. We might just be, and I think that's okay. I've gotten okay with that. For some reason, I have this philosophical thing in my head that says that as a business, you gotta hustle because someone else is gonna be better than you, and you're gonna fail and all this stuff, and it's kind of bullcrap. You know what I'm saying?
But there's something magical about that too. I mean, it's unhealthy when taken to the extreme, but there's also something, I would say, motivating and driving about that part of ego. Like, ego is not all bad. Like, we don't want to be driven and live according to our ego, but ego is what gets us up out of bed every day. Ego is what says, I'm going to provide for my family. Ego says, I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. And, if all of us were like sitting on a mountain staring at the sun, saying for all day, I mean, we would, our families would starve, we would, emaciate,
still be rubbing
down.
Sticks together.
Yeah. I mean, so there's that piece of us that we have to acknowledge that, it's okay to be driven. I'm reminded many times, I try to remind myself, Simon Sinek wrote a book about this, and we've talked about this some, but I think one of the important things of maintaining passion and getting back to your center is always going back to why you do what you do. If you can't vocalize that, if you can't write that down, and if you can't realize that that's what's truly driving you, I think you need to reassess what you're doing, and if you should be doing what you're doing, and getting, not how you do what you do, not what you do, not how much money you make. All of those are important, but your driving force has to be, why do I do this?
Yeah.
What is my why for me personally and for us as a company? What is the why we do what? Why? And then, I talk to so many people and they can't enunciate that. It's almost like, well, we build these really cool websites that have this technology. No, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Well, we hired the best people. No, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Like, why?
It's an interesting question because this industry is kind of like a little bit like the entertainment industry. It's like you ask people in the entertainment industry why you do what you do, and a lot of people they might go to, well, we have important stories to tell, right? It motivates culture and changes thought. And for us too, as advertisers, we do wield a lot of power at some level to our culture. But those are really, really, really good questions, and everyone has to individually be able to answer that, and they're all different. It's all different reasons, and it might be different based on the time of your life and what seasons you're going through. But that's really good.
I think the why is directly proportionate to that feeling of like you're working on a treadmill. Like the stronger your why, the less that feeling is. I think.
Yeah, you kind of if you're just working to death, you kind of forget about the why. And then you also, at some level, the why doesn't become important anymore, and that can be devastating as well.
I think the why is what gives you energy. You've talked about this before, and maybe we've had a episode, but what is the thing that gives you energy? Versus the thing that drains you. Like if your agency is draining you every single day and not giving you any energy at any point throughout the day, again, we've talked about this. You need to reassess that this is what you should be doing, because that's a miserable existence. But what is that thing that if you could just do it, you would do it for free and it would energize you all day long? That's really your why, and that's where you need to dial in and integrate that into your business.
That's a good question to ask yourself. Yeah, I like the way you put that. If you could do it for free, you would do it. What is that thing? So with you guys, I know you've been all over the map. Like you've owned businesses, you've been employed by businesses. What's better?
Well, I would definitely have to say that owning your own business is very, very tough, but it's also at the same time very rewarding. For me, it would be very difficult for me to work for somebody else, only because I feel like I kind of make my bed every day, and I've gotten used to that. I've gotten used to like
you're an unbridled stallion.
For me, it's like I either
stallion bride.
I have more say in whether or not my personal success or my personal growth or my personal time. I have more time. Like right now, if I was an employee, I may be in a meeting right now that I can't get out of. But owning your own business, I'm able to dictate my time, and not all the time. My clients are my bosses. And so you can't all the time. You have to,
there's a downside to that, which is also that your time is more fluid. So like you're saying, sometimes you're on at night or weekends and those kind of things, right? And we know that.
Yeah. But you can still shut it off. You can just not reply and just shut it down. So I personally, I really enjoy owning a business. It just may be the right fit for me. Maybe I'm unmanageable. So it's
part of it.
It makes sense for me. Definitely not a stallion. I would call myself more like a one-trick pony, just because of what I do and what I am. But yeah, what about you?
Me? I've only worked for someone else a couple times in my life as an employee. They were part-time in college, and it's part of why I own a business and always have sort of been either a business owner or independent in some way. I don't like having a schedule.
So like people telling you what to do,
basically. No, I mean, it's not just all that. I think when I was younger, it probably was a lot more of that.
Yeah.
But as I've grown older, I enjoy it, and I also think that that is my creativity.
Yeah.
Is business.
Yeah.
Is how we implement what we do, and not even just this business, but just business in general. And I think that's something that if you're talking about your why, that this may be one element of it. It doesn't have to be 100% of it. And if it should just be one element and not 100%, then if it is all you do, you still might be not fulfilling your why and your purpose, if that makes sense. But for me, I think it's part of why my purpose and my creativity is that, and I really enjoy thinking about how you put a business model around a need and a solution, and create an organization out of something that has influence, that creates profits for people, that employs people. Like those are things that are exciting to me. It's part of what drives me forward. And it also makes me realize that sometimes if I'm only 100% focused on the day-to-day of how we deliver what we do, and I've actually done a disservice to what I believe I'm supposed to be here for, which is to stay up there, to create on that level. And so it's part of the I think the process that I go through, the cycle I go through from time to time in our business, is how deep I am in it, and then versus am I creating at the level that in the area that I think I should be creating, and also where I think my talents are. But that's why I do it. But I would say, like, the times that I get tired of it, the times that I get burnt out, the times that I feel like, man, I wish I just want to quit and be an employee. I think those are the times where I feel like that creativity's gone. I feel like I don't have the opportunity to be creative on that level. I feel like one of the things that drives me is the excitement of no limit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you can call it money, or you can call it other things, like be measured in bunch of different ways. Yeah. But like, if I know every day I get up, I'm getting $1, for instance, like, that's not exciting to me. And it's not really about the money. It's just like, the ceilings are things that are not exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I get excited about the opportunity of no ceiling. And so the times that I get burnt out, I think, are when I'm capped, in a few different ways, and every day is the same, and I get up and I'm working in it. And now there's nothing bad about that, because honestly, like, I think people celebritize entrepreneurship.
Yes,
and the truth is, it's really, really freaking hard.
Yes,
and it's actually not even just the most enjoyable lifestyle. Like, it's not. There's no reason it should be praised more than anything else. And I don't even think it is, but I do think it gets celebritized. Like, oh man, everyone's. But you need people who are good at that, and I'm not even saying I'm good at that. You also need people who are really good at getting things done.
Yeah.
And so it's, and so I'm not saying that being able to execute day to day in an excellent level is a bad thing. I think that the only reason why our business exists, and any business out there exists, is when you have those people. I know we talk about, everyone talks about Apple, but like, you look at someone like Steve Jobs, and you look at maybe all the people that now Tim Cook, I believe it was one of those people that got things done that you never really knew his name. But those are the reasons why that company actually did anything. Like, if it was just the visionary, and again, I'm not saying that I'm that, but if it was just the visionary guy at the top,
he'd just be talking to himself.
He'd be talking to himself, and nothing would get done. And so, that might be the extreme spectrum, but I do think you need all those things. But, for me, but anyway, just to kind of get back to the question that you asked, for me, I need, it is that tension. And I don't think there's a perfect balance between it, but I think that, when I get when I get in the weeds and it's every day and it's just, it burns me out, and I'm like, yeah, I just wish I wasn't doing this.
Yeah, I think you have to have a certain the entrepreneurial life, and this is not really a topic of the podcast, but I think it's something we've touched on, is the entrepreneurial personality. I think you have to have a comfort level and an interest in, and even a propensity for risk.
Uncertainty, yeah.
Yeah, and uncertainty.
Most people don't have that innately.
Right. Is it security more important to you than like you said, having no ceilings, which means I can potentially make as much money as I want or choose and have the freedom in that lifestyle to work when I want. But also there's the risk of, well, I may not have to take a paycheck for a month or two.
Yeah.
Right. There's that reality, and we've all been there, right? So what is your propensity for risk? And you've got to know yourself. You got to have a strong self-awareness, depending on your family situation, et cetera, to say, it might be wiser at this time in my life to go work for an agency or work for someone, and then maybe do it later. Or, you know what? I'm in the wrong place. I shouldn't be working for someone. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I am miserable. Like we talked about, this is draining me. So just knowing yourself and being honest, because it's easy to put out a shingle and get some jobs, and get excited about all the money you're making, but they will be lean times as a business owner, for sure.
I can honestly say that I grew the most in my knowledge of the business, not being a business owner, when I actually worked in an environment where I had other people around me and mentors. And I think as a young person, I would suggest that you do that for a while, because I really do believe that there's a lot of young people who are just out of college and are like, I'm going to be the next Zuckerberg. I'm just going to quit everything and do my own thing and
crush it.
And you can do it and go for it, knock yourself out. It's, it's fine, but there is something about being in an environment where you have to work with people. You have to get along. You have to learn. You have to see people's point of view to make things happen. And you have to, you can learn from people, and people are, that's one thing that when you start your own business, you start feeling like an island, and you don't sometimes have those people around you unless you do incorporate mentors in your life or some type of, you spend time with other people. But if you're growing a business, you have to learn a lot about working with people. I think that's challenging. I know. So I would just say, there's pros and cons to both. I know, Bob, you've done both, and what do you think is like the pros and the cons in your life and where you are right now? I think you're kind of in a.
Well, I'm working for an agency now, 5x5 agency in Brentwood here, and well, let me go back and I'll kind of lead up to that. So I ran an agency for 17 years. Worked for myself prior to that, and did not end well. I was one of those victims of burnout, and just it was a crash and burn for many of the reasons we talked about, and we have talked about, meaning agency life, losing your passion, isolation, all the things that go along with it. And so after coming out of that and literally taking a year off from saying, you know what, I need to work on myself and heal from this and rest and just walk away from that. It was a big decision to say, okay, am I going to go back into that I had a bad taste in my mouth, or okay, that was part of my life. Been there, done that, made a ton of money, lost a ton of money, dealt with the good, bad, and the ugly. But then I realized soon that, that whole, what gives you energy? What are you passionate about? What are you good at? What really gets you up in the morning? And what it was and still is the creativity, helping people, leaving the world just a little bit better than you found it, leaving your mark on the world, not for yourself, but more for how can I push a company to be better, to help more people? How can I help another agency be just a tiny bit better? How can I teach and mentor people and just leave what I know, with the world? So So that got me excited. And so from there, I had to say, do I want to work for myself again? Or do I want to go find a place to work? It's like you said, it's really hard when you've owned your business, when you're entrepreneurial, when you're creative, because you really do feel like you're unemployable, right? It's like the thought of going, and I told my wife, I told people, and I had offers. It's like sitting in an office with my name on the door, look with a window office, pushing paper all day, 8 hours a day. It's like, I don't care how much money if you give me $1 million a year, literally, I probably wouldn't take it because I would be miserable. It was like stick needles in my eyes would be better than that.
You don't like that? You don't like needles?
Better than that, you know?
For $1 million.
And I know that sounds very privileged. It sounds very like, you know, people who are struggling right now, I'd love to have that job. I'll go, well, I get it. I'm just saying for me.
I don't think you're saying that you're not going to do what you need to do to support,
you know what I love about
support
that?
your family, right?
Right.
It has nothing to do with that. It's more about the allure.
But you know what I love about that is that you've gotten to a place where you're like, you know, number one, you know you, right? You know who you are, but not importantly, you know what's important to you. And to the point where you won't do it for $1 million. And I think that's, you know, you can't be paid now because your time in life in your rest of your life is more important than that.
Because let me tell you, the main reason I wouldn't is not because I wouldn't take care of my family, not because I wouldn't do whatever I need to do at any given time to pay bills or take care of I would do that. But my point is what I know myself a little bit, hopefully a lot better in years to come, that it's not good for my mental health. It would destroy my relationships with my family. I would be, you know, a bear to be around. And life is short. I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
I would feel like I would be trapped. I would feel like I would be under the control of another, you know, entity. That's not my personality because I know myself. Now, having said that, am I contradicting myself because I work for a company now? I think you got to find what works for you. And so my current situation was I was brought in as a contractor. They're like, hey, can you help us with some things? I was still independent. I was contracting. I was working on projects. And I found a place that fit my personality, gave me the freedom, gave me the control. And when I say control, said, you know, we want you to be over this department, build it out. You're going to have the tools, you're going to have the resources. And we want you to continue to do what you do, meaning help us with our podcast and be a thought leader. And, you know, and by the way, you're going to have freedom to work at home when you want to. So it's almost like I'm still working for myself and I get to do the things that I get to do. It's nice to have a steady paycheck. Will I be there 10 years from now? I don't know. Maybe. So it's not, I think for me, what I've realized is it's not an either or thing. I think you have to find the people, the projects, and the environment that work for you. Those are all the things that I hated and I crashed and burned about. What I crashed and burned about wasn't agency life. I loved that. What I hated was working on projects I don't like, working with clients just to pay bills, all the things that I could have done better and organized and put process together. So if you can find an environment on your own or an environment with a company that works for you, then I think that's what's most important. And I don't want people to see like this is like a dual thing. It's like you work for a company or you work for yourself. I think there's lots of spectrums and opportunities for you to find what you're passionate about.
What was the one thing after you said you crashed and burned that kept you in this industry? Like, why didn't you just kind of walk away and say, I'm going to go do something completely different? Like, what was it that like felt?
I thought really hard about like, okay, what am I good at and what can I apply to another industry, right? Well, I'm really good at sales. I'm really good at like relationships. And then I thought, you know, I see these people making millions of dollars in real estate. And I thought, that's not me. But then I'm like, commercial real estate, I could do that. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like,
then COVID hit.
And then, well, it wasn't so much COVID. It was just like, I can't get up in the morning excited about selling buildings. Yeah. But I think what kept me in it and what gets me excited is and you guys I think are like this too, is the thought of being creative and doing something different every day and challenging your mind and growing and being elastic, meaning that you're stretching yourself and helping clients do the same thing. It's like you're building something different and new all the time. And you can take a step back from it and say, wow, I built something that wasn't there, or I helped this company get further than they were. I brought good into the world in a way that was not just an exchange of a widget for money.
Do you think that's still, I'm glad you mentioned that. That was one of the things that allured me to it too, was that that ability to basically solve a very different problem, or almost kind of be the part of the entrepreneurship in a business, right? When you get hired to help them. And that kind of idea of, 10, 15 years ago, like solving a problem that no one else knew how to solve, innovating in a lot of ways, especially, back then using technology and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't as easy as it is now. Do you feel like that's lost a little bit? Like, let me ask you this, and this is something I've been wanting to maybe dive into. Maybe it's a different podcast, but agencies 10, 15 years ago, I remember back in the Buzz Plant days.
All right.
We were solving, like someone was coming like, hey, we need X, Y, and Z. We can't do it ourselves. We don't even know how to do it. You're one of the few people that we know that know how to do it. Can we do this? And it's like, yeah, I think we could do that.
At least that's what we told them.
Yeah.
Well, there's a level of invention.
It's invention.
Yes.
Yeah. It's that innovation. It's like, we don't know, but we believe we can. All right. So there was this real excitement and real need for, like, you go to an agency, they especially, let's call it, in the digital world anyway, you go there, they create something and they innovate for you.
Right.
Does innovation exist anymore? Like, what is that now? Because
I think
everything has become so easy.
I think you read my mind, because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, why? I have this,
and that's been a little. I'll just say before you, like, that's been a little sad to me, just to be honest with you. And then the fun and it's also something that I'm chewing on to say, like, what is that area of of innovation that used to exist here, and it's not. It's always going to happen, right? It's cyclical. Like, especially technology, it's gonna be very hard but possible. Then it's going to be really easy for everyone to do, and then I feel
like technology in our industry has taken out innovation, and it becomes where we just rely on the algorithms to do their job that we are not even participating in that much. Where in the old days, we used to really work heavily with the client when they're launching a new product, and our input was.
You didn't just tell an ABC News, get me all these people in this age range?
Yeah, exactly. You had to be more thoughtful, and you had to work more with a client. If you were launching a product, you were participating in the innovation, and even if it was the way you're positioning a product, or the way you're marketing a product, or creating a brand, there was a lot more of your input in that area. And I think that's one thing that we've kind of lost, is that we've gotten more and more to the point where we're just kind of note takers and implementation people, putting information in systems and letting the systems do their work. And I think that's one of the things that it's always driven me to be in an agency, is because there was a side of innovation, and I still try to foster that in our agency. I feel like I'm kind of bent that way, so I kind of go there. But I realize too that not everyone wants to innovate in an agency. Some people just want to do what they do. They want they want a process that they can follow. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I go home. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I go home. Some people like that. I mean, honestly, I know. Some people are fulfilled by different things in life. That doesn't fulfill me personally. That's why I couldn't work on a line. But the reality is that some people need that, and that's part of the need of an agency too. You need to do that. But I think we definitely have lost that.
I don't think it's a question of which one is good or bad, but I do think it ends up going towards the business model, because like if you're selling things that can't be done, then you're needed.
Yeah.
If you're selling things that are easy to do, then you're not really needed. And I think without realizing it, agencies have started to fall into that second bucket. You know, and now that just might be my take on it. I don't know if that's true.
I mean, when you just said that scenario about BuzzPlant and about how people would come to Bob and Bob, we know you can do this. You're the only one around that we know that can do this. And you're like, yeah, we can do that. And I like that right. Makes me like happy. Like, I'm like, wow, that is so cool, because it's like you have something that nobody else has. And I think that's the hard thing right now, is that businesses, especially agencies and marketing companies, are hard to differentiate themselves, and it's hard to find companies that are doing something really different. And
I think it comes down to seeing yourself, getting back to the core of what you do, and there's nothing wrong with focusing on a specific technology, but just know that, you know, from the beginning and dawn of time till, you know, a caveman had a rock and said, I'm going to break open something with it, to where we are in 2020. Any new technology is going to be limited in awareness and knowledge of the person that owns that. But then over time, it will become commoditized and everybody will know that. That's just the wave and the cycles of technology. Every single technology. Let's look at electric cars, right? So, you know, if you've ever seen that documentary on Netflix, you know, back in the early 90s, GM came out with this electric car that all the stars were getting. And, you know, then all of a sudden they pulled them off the market, and there was this like supposedly conspiracy, and there was only so many of them made, and they were told to destroy them and all of this, right? So it's not that that technology hasn't been around, but no one had it or knew how to use it, or there was, you know, controversy about why it was being used. Then all of a sudden, Elon Musk comes along and says, you know, I'm going to make a car that's phenomenal and it's going to be successful. And everyone's like, yeah, whatever. Now he dominates electric car world. Everyone follows suit. You can go get an electric car for, you know, $30,000. And in 2 years from now, they'll be $20,000, right?
And in a couple of years, there'll be many more electric car companies, because the innovation side of that, one part of it is, you know, how do you let a car run for 300 miles on a battery, right? No one could do that before except for a few people. And now that technology's kind of become easier.
So if you're Elon Musk, right, you're like, 10 years ago, I can get up and it was so cool to be in the electric car business because no one was doing it and everyone was coming to me. You know, in 5 years from now, he could be sitting and going, Tesla's boring because every car company has an electric car and they do it just as good as me and they go just as far. But what Elon Musk said was, I'm an innovator. I create technology and I'm going to go build rocket ships. I'm going to go build drills under the ground. And that's an extreme example, but I think that's how that's how I get up in the morning. I don't see agency life and digital marketing and all this just as I'm going to go put Facebook ads up, or I'm going to go be the best WordPress builder in the world. And there's nothing wrong with that. I try to see myself as an innovator and as a media professional. And so that gives me the freedom to say, you know what? Artificial intelligence, how can I integrate that with, you know, data and stats and reporting and Google Analytics and, you know, a functionality of a product? How can I innovate augmented reality into this client's products? You know, there's always going to be new technology that you can integrate. It's just how you see yourself. Do you see yourself as an innovator? Do you see yourself as a media company? I had this argument with somebody in an agency recently. We were discussing the idea of we need to.
You got a backup vehicle, I think.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Delivery.
Yeah. Do you see yourself as a media company or do you see yourself as a service agency? And this person was like, media company connotates, you know, like Fox News or NBC or Lionsgate Media. I'm like, no. Those are Hollywood film, but you are a media company. And we just had this disagreement. And I said, well, let me give you an example. When you create podcasts, you do that for clients, right? Oh yeah, we create a lot of podcasts. Well, you're a production company, and are you tagging yourself on the end of that podcast? Are you making sure people know that you're the producer, so that when you create good content into the world and thousands and thousands of people download that podcast for your client, do they even know that you produced it? Well, no, but that's a good idea. We should probably do it. Well, yeah, because guess what? Then people are going to be like, oh, who made that podcast? We want to go hire them to create our podcast. All of a sudden, you see yourself as a media and production company. Now, were they still doing agency stuff? Yes. Were they still creating the solution for the client? Yes. But they were the source of the innovation. They were the source of the content. They were the source of the media. And they were the producers and not just a service agency. And that's where I think you got to flip the script on what you do. And even if you are focused on, like you guys, primarily Shopify, like how can we make e-commerce? Okay. Yeah. How can we make e-commerce and the tools around e-commerce do something so different and ahead of the game than anyone else that it makes it super easy, and you raise the conversion rates, and people are getting and buying your products in ways that they never even thought of. I think that's the key, is just like how do you be the leader, not the follower, not the lever puller of the technology. We were talking about this, and not to get off another subject, but you were bemoaning your issues with Facebook lately, right? It's like if your business is dependent 100%.
Can I stop you for a second? If Facebook is listening, give me a call. I need
and they are listening.
Oh, they are. Yes, they're always listening.
Yeah, I'll just end my rant. My rant on this is don't be dependent on a platform or someone else's technology for the success of your own business.
Yeah, amen with that. It's harder and harder these days.
Yes, it is,
because you don't realize you're dependent on it.
Until it's turned off.
It just creeps up on you, like Facebook. I mean, we in e-commerce, we deal with a lot of different brands, and a large majority of most of them do their advertising on Facebook. And we've had Facebook accounts shut off, like happened to you, and it literally turns off a giant revenue stream. It's a huge vulnerability. The challenge is there aren't that many comparable platforms like that.
Yeah. It's really kind of, I mean, I'm not somebody who can speak to this, but it's really, we've monopolized a lot of these businesses where.
Well, we are, but we also give the monopoly to them because as people, we all flock to it, right? And so, not to get on sort of a tangent, but I wonder if old school media is actually one of the ways to diversify versus, against some of those things. But I completely agree with what you're saying, Bob. I think that, though, maybe it's just my perspective. So I agree. Like, I think the innovation comes on like almost the business model side,
right?
And there's still, if you're into, obviously we're most agencies are probably in technology as well. If you're not, then you're one of the very few probably. And so there are new technologies to use to try and innovate, but technology as a whole is just becoming democratized so much. Like, it's getting so easy, like at faster rates, that it's harder to play in that space. But the question is, where can you innovate? Where can you innovate for yourself and your clients? And I have come to the conclusion, at least for us, that it's in the business model and how we deliver what we do. You and I have talked a lot about this idea of a media company. I would say, in a large way, we see ourselves internally as a media and publishing company, as well as a service company, because a big part of what we do is publishing, creating content, and putting it out there.
And I think that's the excitement of this industry, is that it is part innovation. Yeah. It's part
and if you want to publish books, you can publish
media.
Books.
Right. It's like you can go so many directions, and a lot of agencies do go multiple directions. They have multiple businesses, right, that they're running. They're running a media company, they're running an innovation company, and it's like you are like, I mean, if you look at most companies these days, that's what they are. Like, if you look at even Tesla, like, what is Tesla's, yeah, it's a car company, but if you look at the leadership of Tesla, like an Elon Musk, and he's involved in so many other things, you don't feel like Tesla may advance like into something else eventually. Like there's so much more than just cars. Like and I think that's what differentiates him from like General Motors. Like if you told me like General Motors are they innovative? You're like, no, they just buy from suppliers. They're just integrating everything else that every other company is integrating right now. They're just buying. They're a buying company. They're not an innovation company. Like I don't think of them that way. They probably are. I just don't see it. I don't feel it. Like I would with a Tesla or Elon Musk, because maybe they have a leader or something. And so I think for, going back to like why we love this business and why, I think we've talked about a lot, knowing why you do what you do, and understanding, your own burnout. But I think that is why I feel kind of built to do this business, whether I'm running a business or involved. I've been doing this since I was 17 years old. I worked for my first ad agency at 17, and I still enjoy it today. Like I think that's pretty amazing. Not because of me, but I think that's like a human being going through their whole life and working in this business in all aspects, being burnt out and still coming back for more. Like that's the excitement, right? That I think all of us feel, and I think this industry feels, but I do think it's about boundaries. It's about knowing yourself, and then how you work within this industry and finding your niche, because there is so many lanes that you can choose in this industry, I think, which makes it so exciting. And we're innovators, right? You can become thought leaders, you can become innovators, you can invent the next thing for your client or for your agency or for yourself at the same time. And so there's a lot there that I'm sure everybody has.
I think it's easy to lose sight of that, though. And I think it's important to remember that. I think as soon as, and I see this happen to a lot of agencies, they may not even realize it, especially sometimes newer ones that just kind of fall into it. But it's so easy just to fall into, like, to forget about being an innovator and just fall into, an order taker that really has no value. Whether you just put sites together or you just put ads together and you run them on Facebook or whatever other platform, or even on the creative side, like, you can fall into just doing what other people do, following other brands. And so, and you can get paid to do that, but it's not, it's really short-term thinking, and it's very volatile. I think it's important to focus on how can I innovate, and in your business first, and then for your clients too.
Yeah, that's good, guys. This is a good discussion. Is there any last minute tips that we would say? Did we answer the question? How do you maintain your passion? And I think what I walk away from this discussion realizing is it's different for every human being, but you really got to find out your why, and then what gives you energy to wake up in the morning, and really do some hard work of sitting down and thinking about that and writing it down, and then just say, how do I integrate that into my business, and how do I innovate? How do I stay creative? Any other thoughts?
I think when you get burnt out, I was just told this yesterday by my business coach, but overwhelm comes from a lack of focus. And I think there's some wisdom in that. And so if you're burnt out, if you're overwhelmed, if your boundaries are being disrupted all the time by your work, does your focus, what is your why? What should your focus be on? And then what are you focusing on that thing?
What do you need to let go of?
And then let go of the other stuff.
I would say interruption is something that I think every business owner, it can really deplete you. And I think that if you can, last episode, we talked about delegation. And I think if you can delegate interruption and keep your mind focused on a few top level things, that I think you will always do better, and you'll feel better about it. You'll feel like you're accomplishing, and you won't feel the burnout as much. So I would definitely take that into practice. And then, go find a hobby.
Yeah.
Something that's physical, active, that's not completely the opposite of what you do every day. Go find a hobby that you enjoy, that is completely different.
That's great advice. Great advice. Also, want to encourage everyone, please go and rate and review our podcast. That would help us tremendously. We got lots of cool ideas and things coming up. We're into over 40 episodes now. So.
Yeah, just over it. So that's cool. We're getting on a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for listening. I know our audience has grown, and we're super excited about that. We get emails from people that are listening to things with either feedback or ideas, or saying, "Hey, I feel the same way." So that's exciting. So, like Bob said, please go rate. Please share it with anyone that you think would be helpful to.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the next quarter from now. I think there's some changes that everyone will see, and we're gonna be doing some cool new things. So
yeah. All right, guys. Till next time.
See you.
See you. Bye.